When did you realize your parents would rather see you dead than happy? The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, 3 days before my college graduation. I knew what it was before I even opened it. The expensive cream stationery was the same kind Mom used for funeral thank you notes. Dear Marcus, it began, using my dead name like a slap across the face. Your father and I will not be attending Saturday's ceremony. We are in mourning for our real child, who died the day you chose this sinful delusion. Please do not contact us again. We are praying for the soul of the daughter we lost. Mother. I sat there in my cramped studio apartment, holding the letter with hands that had stopped shaking months ago. 22 years old, about to graduate summa cum laude with a degree in computer engineering, and my parents had literally sent me a death notice. It had been 8 months since I'd called them from my dorm room, heart hammering as I finally said the words, Mom, Dad, I'm transgender. I'm your son, not your daughter. My name is Alex now. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Then Dad's voice, cold as January, you are confused and sick. Come home immediately. I should have known better than to drive the 4 hours back to Millfield that weekend. Should have recognized the intervention set up the moment I walked into our living room and saw Pastor Williams sitting on our floral couch, Bible open in his lap. This is a phase, Mom kept saying, her manicured fingers twisting her pearl necklace. You're just confused by all those liberal professors filling your head with nonsense. When I tried to explain, about the years of feeling wrong in my own skin, about finally understanding why I'd never felt like their perfect daughter, Pastor Williams quoted Deuteronomy. Dad talked about shame and sin. Mom cried and asked where they'd gone wrong. The final blow came Sunday morning when they presented their ultimatum, abandon this foolishness, live as God made you, and we'll continue supporting you through your final semester. Continue down this path of destruction, and you are no longer our child. I looked at these people who'd raised me, who cheered at every softball game when I was miserable playing a sport I hated, who'd enrolled me in pageants that made my skin crawl, who'd never once asked what I actually wanted. Then I guess I'm not your child anymore. Dad cut off my credit cards before I'd even reached the highway. Mom blocked my phone number that same afternoon. I found out about the family WhatsApp group message on Wednesday. My cousin Jessica sent me screenshots. Mom had told everyone that their daughter had passed away unexpectedly, and they were grieving privately. At Thanksgiving, I learned through Facebook photos that they'd removed every picture of me from the house. My bedroom had been converted into Mom's craft room. When my grandmother called asking about funeral arrangements, Mom apparently told her there wouldn't be a service. So here I was, holding their final rejection, 3 days before the biggest milestone of my life. My parents would rather attend my fictional funeral than watch me graduate with honors. They'd rather mourn an imaginary corpse than celebrate their living son. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my desk drawer next to the bank statements showing my dwindling savings account and the acceptance letter from Google that would change everything. They thought they were burying me. They had no idea they were just giving me room to grow. The Google offer letter felt surreal in my hands, $127,000 starting salary, plus signing bonus, plus stock options. 6 months ago, I'd been eating ramen for the third night in a row, wondering if I could afford both groceries and testosterone shots. Now I was looking at more money than Dad made in 2 years managing the hardware store. I should have been celebrating, but instead I kept staring at the emergency contact section of my new hire paperwork. The blank line seemed to mock me. No parents to call. No siblings, I was an only child, which somehow made their rejection cut deeper. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya, my roommate from sophomore year who'd become my chosen sister. Coffee in 20? I have graduation cap decorating supplies and questionable taste in glitter. Maya Chen had been the first person I'd come out to, back when I was still terrified to say the words out loud. She'd listened to me cry about dysphoria at 2 a.m., helped me pick out my first masculine clothes, and held my hand during my first testosterone injection. When my parents cut me off, she'd quietly started forgetting her leftovers in my fridge and accidentally buying extra groceries. Be right there, I texted back, shoving the Google paperwork into my backpack alongside the funeral letter from my parents. The contrast felt important somehow, death notice and life-changing job offer, side by side. The coffee shop was busy with other soon-to-be graduates, everyone buzzing with nervous energy about Saturday's ceremony. Maya had claimed our usual corner table, her engineering textbook spread out like a fort around craft supplies that looked like they'd exploded. Okay, so I'm thinking we'd go full extra, she announced, holding up a bag of rainbow glitter. Your parents want to act like you're dead. Let's make sure everyone at graduation knows exactly how alive you are. I pulled out the letter and slid it across the table. Maya's expression darkened as she read, her jaw tightening with each word. Jesus, Alex. This is. She looked up at me, eyes blazing. They sent you a fucking obituary notice. Pretty much. I tried to keep my voice light, but it cracked anyway. The funny thing is, I keep wanting to call them. Like, muscle memory. I got the Google offer, and my first instinct was still to call home. Google. Maya's eyes widened. Holy shit, you got Google. Alex, that's incredible. When do you start? July 15th, Mountain View campus. I managed a real smile for the first time in days. Senior software engineer position. They're even helping with relocation costs. Maya launched herself around the table to hug me, nearly knocking over someone's latte. This is huge. We need to celebrate. We need to tell everyone. We need to, she stopped abruptly, settling back into her chair. They have no idea, do they? Your parents. I shook my head. They blocked me on everything. Changed their phone number last month. I found out because my cousin Jessica tried to give it to me, and when I called, the automated message said the number was disconnected. Their loss, Maya said fiercely. Seriously, Alex. You're about to graduate top of your class, you just landed a dream job at one of the biggest tech companies in the world, and you're finally living as yourself. They're missing out on knowing this amazing person because they're too stuck in their bullshit to see who you really are. She was right, but it still felt like losing a limb. 22 years of programming was hard to override. The deep, cellular need for parental approval doesn't just disappear because they've proven themselves unworthy of your love. Come on, Maya said, pushing the glitter toward me. Let's make your graduation cap fabulous. If they want to mourn their fake dead daughter, fine. But everyone's going to see their very alive sunshine. We spent the next 2 hours turning my graduation cap into what Maya called a rainbow middle finger to transphobia. By the time we finished, it was covered in holographic letters spelling out Alex Chin Nakamura. I'd legally changed my last name too, adding Maya's family name since they'd actually shown up for me, with tiny LED lights woven through rainbow ribbons. It's perfect, Maya declared, holding it up to catch the coffee shop's lighting. Visible from space, just like your success should be. My phone rang as we were packing up the craft supplies. Unknown number, local area code. I almost didn't answer, too many memories of hoping it might be mom calling from a different phone, but something made me pick up. Is this Alex Chin Nakamura? The voice was unfamiliar, professional. Speaking. This is Janet Morrison from KQED. I'm working on a feature story about first-generation college graduates in the Bay Area, and your name came up through our research. Would you be interested in doing a brief interview? My stomach dropped. I'm sorry, I think there's been a mistake. I'm not first generation. Oh. Papers rustled in the background. Our records show your parents are listed as deceased on your graduation paperwork. I apologize if that's a sensitive topic. I stared at Maya, who was watching my face with growing concern. Could you hold on just one moment? I covered the phone and whispered to Maya, the graduation office thinks my parents are dead. Her eyes widened. What did you put on the paperwork? Nothing. I left the family section blank. Then it hit me. Oh shit. My emergency contact. I'd listed Dr. Sarah Kim, the campus counselor who'd helped me through the worst of my transition, as my emergency contact. Under relationship, I'd written family friend because I couldn't bear to write surrogate parent on an official form. The graduation office must have made assumptions. I need to call you back, I told the reporter, and hung up. Maya was already pulling out her laptop. Let me check the graduation program draft, they sent it to all the students for review last week. My hands were shaking as she navigated to the PDF. There it was, page 247, Alex Chin Nakamura, Computer Engineering, summa cum laude. Remembered with love by Dr. Sarah Kim and the entire Chin family. They think I'm an orphan, I whispered. They literally think I'm an orphan. Well, Maya said slowly, technically. Maya. I'm just saying, they cut you off completely. They told everyone you were dead. They're not coming to graduation. How is this different from being an orphan, except that your parents are alive and choosing to be terrible? She had a point, but seeing it in print felt surreal. The graduation office had looked at my paperwork, no parents listed, emergency contact as family friend, legal name change, financial aid showing no family contribution, and drawn the obvious conclusion. My phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Kim. Alex, I just got a strange call from the graduation office about flower arrangements. Could you call me when you have a moment? This is getting complicated, I muttered, but Maya was grinning. Or, she said, this is getting perfect. Think about it, your parents want everyone to think you're dead. Fine. Let them. But now the whole world gets to see the dead kid graduating with highest honors and starting at Google. Meanwhile, they're sitting at home in their grief theater, missing everything. The reporter called back before I could respond. This time, I answered on the first ring. I'd love to do the interview, I told her. When did you want to meet? The interview was scheduled for Thursday afternoon at a cafe near campus. I spent Wednesday night Googling Janet Morrison and found out she wasn't just any reporter, she'd won a Peabody Award for her series on LGBTQ+ youth homelessness. This wasn't going to be some fluff piece about academic achievement. Maya insisted on coming with me for moral support, positioning herself at a nearby table with her laptop and what she claimed was homework but was obviously eavesdropping material. Janet turned out to be a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a sort of gentle persistence that probably made people confess their deepest secrets. Tell me about your journey to graduation, she began, recorder app visible on her phone. It must have been challenging, losing your parents so young. I took a breath. Actually, my parents aren't dead. They just decided I was. Janet's pen stopped moving. I'm sorry, could you clarify that? So I told her. Everything. The coming out call, the intervention weekend, the ultimatum, the financial cutoff, the family announcement that I had died, the funeral letter 3 days before graduation. Janet's expression shifted from professional sympathy to something harder to read. They literally told your extended family you were deceased, she asked. My cousin sent me screenshots. Mom posted in a family group chat that their daughter had passed unexpectedly and they were grieving privately. When people asked about services, she said there wouldn't be any. And the graduation office assumption? I left the family section blank on all my paperwork. Listed Dr. Kim as my emergency contact. I guess they connected the dots their own way. I shrugged. Honestly, it's not wrong. I've been functionally an orphan since October. Janet was quiet for a long moment, studying her notes. Alex, I have to ask, are you sure you want this story public? This is going to get attention, especially with your parents being local. Millfield's only 40 minutes from here. My stomach lurched. I hadn't thought about that. What do you mean, local attention? Well, your story intersects with several trending topics: family rejection of LGBTQ+ kids, religious extremism, academic success despite personal trauma. Plus, if I'm remembering correctly, isn't Millfield where that big church scandal broke last year? Pastor Williams and the missing building fund money. I nearly choked on my coffee. Pastor Williams was arrested last March. Embezzled nearly $200,000 from the church renovation fund. Big story in the local papers. Janet was watching my face carefully. I'm guessing this is the same Pastor Williams who was involved in your family intervention. Jesus Christ. I pulled out my phone, frantically Googling. There it was, Pastor Marcus Williams, arrested for grand theft and fraud. The same man who'd sat in my parents' living room quoting scripture about my sinful delusion had been stealing from his congregation for 3 years. This adds another layer to your story, Janet said gently. The moral authority your parents chose over their own child turned out to be a criminal. That's significant. I stared at the arrest photos on my phone. Pastor Williams in handcuffs, looking nothing like the righteous figure who'd condemned me. My parents don't know I know about this. Do you want them to? It was a loaded question. Part of me wanted to call them, to throw their hypocrisy in their faces. They'd chosen a thief's version of morality over their own son. But the bigger part of me realized something else. I didn't need their acknowledgement of how wrong they'd been. Their approval had stopped matching somewhere between the funeral letter and the Google offer. I want the story published, I said finally. All of it. The rejection, the fake death announcement, Pastor Williams, everything. If they want to pretend I'm dead, fine. But the world should know what kind of people would rather bury their living child than love them. Janet nodded slowly. This will have consequences, Alex. Are you prepared for that? I thought about the Google salary, about Maya's chosen family love, about graduating summa cum laude despite everything they'd thrown at me. I'm ready. The story ran Friday morning, 2 days after my interview with Janet Morrison. I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. My phone had been buzzing so consistently through the night that I'd eventually turned it face down and tried to sleep through the vibrations. Maya was already up, laptop open at my kitchen table, her face pale in the blue glow of the screen. Alex, she said without looking up. You need to see this. The KQED article had exploded overnight. Not just their website, it had been picked up by the San Francisco Chronicle, then the Associated Press, then what seemed like every major news outlet in California. The headline read, College graduate's parents declare him dead rather than accept his identity, same religious leader later arrested for theft. Shit, I whispered, scrolling through the comments. There were thousands of them. Messages of support mixed with religious condemnation mixed with people sharing their own stories of family rejection. Someone had started a hashtag #deadbutthriving. It gets worse, Maya said, turning her laptop screen toward me. Or better, depending on how you look at it. She pulled up the Millfield Community Facebook page. The post from their local paper sharing the story had over 800 comments, and I recognized names from my childhood scattered throughout. Mrs. Henderson from Sunday school, I always wondered why the Nakamura stopped coming to church. This is heartbreaking. Tom Miller, Dad's poker buddy, can't believe Jim and Linda would do this to their kid. Alex was always such a good student. But it was the comment from my cousin Jessica that made my chest tighten. For anyone wondering, Alex is very much alive and about to graduate with highest honors from UC Berkeley. He's got a job at Google and he's happier than I've ever seen him. Meanwhile, his parents have been telling people for months that their daughter died. It's sick. My phone rang, another unknown number. I'd stopped answering them around 6 a.m. when a reporter from Sacramento caught me off guard and I'd hung up mid-sentence. But this one had a 559 area code. Millfield. Don't answer it, Maya warned, but I was already swiping to accept. Alex? The voice was shaky, older. Alex, honey, this is your Aunt Caroline. My mother's sister. I hadn't heard from her since my parents had announced my death. Caroline had sent a sympathy casserole and offered to help with funeral arrangements, according to Jessica. Hi, Aunt Caroline. I didn't know what else to say. I read the article. Oh, sweetheart. I am so sorry. When your mother said you passed, I never thought to question. I mean, who lies about their own child dying? Her voice cracked. I sent a goddamn casserole, Alex. I was mourning you while you were out there struggling alone. It's not your fault. The hell it isn't. I should have called you directly. Should have asked questions. Your mother was always dramatic, but this. She was crying now. Baby, I know it's too late, but I want to be at your graduation tomorrow. Would that be okay? My throat closed up. You want to come? I want to bring your Uncle Robert and both your cousins. We want to cheer for you like we should have been doing all along. If you'll have us. I looked at Maya, who was giving me an encouraging nod, then at the graduation cap we decorated sitting on my bookshelf, rainbow ribbons catching the morning light. The ceremony's at 2 p.m., I managed. Greek theater on campus. We'll be there. Front row if we can manage it. And Alex? I'm proud of you, honey. I'm proud of who you've become. After we hung up, I sat staring at my phone. For family members were driving 3 hours to watch me graduate. Real family, who'd been deceived but were choosing to show up now that they knew the truth. Maya was grinning at me from across the table. So, still think this publicity was a mistake? Ask me again after tomorrow, I said, but I was smiling too. Outside my apartment window, I could see the Berkeley campus where I'd fought for every credit hour, every grade, every step toward this moment. Tomorrow I'd walk across that stage as Alex Chin Nakamura, very much alive, surrounded by people who actually wanted to celebrate my existence. My parents thought they'd buried me. Instead, they'd just made room for me to rise. The morning of graduation, my phone rang at 7:23 a.m. Mom's contact photo, the one I'd never been able to delete, filled the screen for the first time in 8 months. My hands trembled as I stared at it, muscle memory warring with everything I'd learned about protecting my peace. Maya, who'd slept on my couch to help me get ready, sat up immediately. Don't answer it, she whispered, but I was already swiping to accept. Hello, Mother. The formality felt like armor. Marcus. Her voice was tight, controlled. The way it got when she was furious but trying to appear reasonable. We need to talk. My name is Alex. Your father and I have been made aware of your recent media attention. This article is causing significant distress in our community. I almost laughed. 8 months of silence, and she calls because I embarrassed her at the country club. I imagine it is. People are saying terrible things about us. Mrs. Henderson actually confronted me at the grocery store yesterday. Called us unfit parents. Her voice cracked slightly on the last words, and for a split second, I felt the old urge to comfort her. Well, I said instead, what do you call parents who tell everyone their living child is dead? We were grieving. You were lying. There's a difference. The silence stretched between us, filled with everything we'd never be able to say to each other. Finally, Mom cleared her throat. Your father and I have discussed it, and we're prepared to attend your graduation today. We think it would be appropriate for the family to present a united front. The audacity took my breath away. A united front? People are watching now. This whole situation has gotten out of hand, and we need to show that we're reasonable people who love our child. She paused. Obviously, you'll need to make some kind of public statement. Clarify that you spoke out of hurt feelings. Tell people we've reconciled. Maya was making increasingly violent gestures from across the room, but I felt strangely calm. Let me make sure I understand. You want to come to my graduation, the one you said you'd rather die than attend, so you can force me to lie publicly about your behavior. To protect your reputation. We want to move forward as a family, Marcus. But this vindictive media campaign needs to stop. And if I refuse? Her voice hardened. Then you'll be responsible for destroying our standing in this community. Your father could lose his position as church treasurer. I could lose my job at the school district. People we've known for decades are turning their backs on us because of your selfishness. There it was. The manipulation that had controlled me for 22 years, wrapped in maternal concern. The threat that my happiness would always come at the cost of their suffering. That loving myself meant destroying them. But something had shifted in me over these months of building my own life. Maybe it was the Google salary sitting in my bank account, or Aunt Caroline's voice yesterday telling me she was proud. Maybe it was simply that I'd survived their worst rejection and discovered I didn't need their approval to breathe. Mom, I said quietly, do you love me? Of course I. Do you love Alex? Your son. Not the daughter you think you lost, but the person I actually am. The pause told me everything. I love the child I raised. The person God intended you to be. Then don't come to graduation. Because Alex Chin Nakamura is walking across that stage today, and he deserves better than parents who attend out of damage control. I hung up before she could respond, my heart hammering against my ribs. Maya was across the room in seconds, pulling me into a fierce hug. Holy shit, she whispered. You just chose yourself. Finally. Outside, Berkeley was waking up to another perfect California morning, and in 6 hours, I'd be a college graduate surrounded by people who actually wanted me alive. The graduation ceremony was supposed to start at 2 p.m., but by noon, the situation had spiraled completely out of control. I was in my cap and gown, standing outside the Greek theater with Maya and Dr. Kim, when Jessica came running up the path, her face flushed and panicked. Alex, thank God I found you, she gasped, doubled over trying to catch her breath. Your parents, they're here. But that's not the worst part. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? They brought Pastor Williams. Maya's eyes went wide. The embezzling pastor. Isn't he supposed to be in jail? He posted bail last month, Jessica said, still breathing hard. But Alex, they're not just here. They set up some kind of intervention thing in the parking lot. Your dad rented a fucking megaphone. As if summoned by her words, Dad's amplified voice carried across campus, my daughter is being held captive by the transgender cult. She needs our prayers to escape Satan's influence. Dr. Kim's face went pale. Alex, I'm calling campus security right now. Wait. I pulled out my phone and started recording as we walked toward the commotion. If they wanted to make a scene at my graduation, the world was going to see exactly what kind of people they were. The sight that greeted us was surreal. Dad stood on a literal soapbox, an actual wooden crate, with a megaphone in one hand and a poster-sized photo of me at age 16 in the other. The picture showed me in a pink dress at my high school graduation, long hair curled, makeup perfect. Across the top, someone had written, "Pray for the return of Linda Nakamura's daughter," in red marker. Mom sat at a folding table with a stack of flyers, talking earnestly to anyone who'd listen. Pastor Williams stood beside her in his cheap suit, apparently unbothered by the irony of preaching morality while awaiting trial for theft. The transgender ideology is a mental illness, Dad was saying into the megaphone. My daughter was brainwashed by liberal professors who convinced her to mutilate God's perfect creation. A crowd had gathered, some curious students, some counter-protesters holding rainbow flags, and unfortunately, several news crews. I spotted Janet Morrison from KQED setting up with her cameraman. This is insane, Maya whispered. They're protesting your existence at your own graduation. Aunt Caroline appeared at my elbow, her face thunderous. I am so sorry, honey. We tried to talk to them in the parking lot, but they're completely unhinged. Uncle Robert was behind her, looking like he wanted to punch something. 27 years I've known your father, and I never realized what a fanatic he was. Caroline's been crying since we got here. My cousin stood nearby with homemade signs reading "Alex is loved" and "Proud of our cousin," forming a small barrier between me and the chaos. Dad spotted me and his voice cracked with emotion. There she is. Linda Marie Nakamura, come home to your family. We forgive you for this rebellion. The use of my dead name felt like a physical slap, but what happened next surprised everyone. A group of my engineering classmates, people I'd studied with but wasn't particularly close to, formed a protective circle around me. That's not his name, asshole, shouted David Chen, a guy I'd maybe spoken to 5 times total. His name is Alex and he's graduating summa cum laude. More students joined the circle, then faculty members, then random strangers who'd just been walking by. Within minutes, we were surrounded by a wall of people chanting Alex. Alex. Alex, drowning out Dad's megaphone completely. Pastor Williams tried to push through the crowd, clutching his Bible. This young woman needs spiritual intervention. She's been deceived by. Shut the hell up, Aunt Caroline snapped, stepping directly into his path. You stole money from your own congregation, and you have the nerve to lecture anyone about morality? Get away from my nephew before I have you arrested again myself. The look of shock on his face was priceless. Apparently no one had challenged the great Pastor Williams in quite some time. Campus security finally arrived, along with actual police officers. As they began dispersing the crowd and confiscating Dad's megaphone, Mom caught sight of me for the first time. The expression on her face when she saw me in my graduation regalia, really saw me, as Alex, as her son, was something I'd remember forever. For just a moment, her careful mask slipped, and I saw grief and recognition and maybe even pride flicker across her features. Then she looked away and started packing up her flyers. Come on, Maya said, tugging my arm. We have a graduation to get to. Don't let them steal this moment from you. But as we walked toward the ceremony, I realized they hadn't stolen anything. If anything, they'd given me the most public demonstration possible of the difference between DNA and family. The people surrounding me, protecting me, chanting my name, that was what love actually looked like. The ceremony itself should have been anticlimactic after the parking lot drama, but somehow it felt more meaningful. As I walked across the stage to receive my diploma, the applause was thunderous, not just from my chosen family, but from hundreds of students and faculty who'd witnessed the confrontation outside. Alex Chin Nakamura, computer engineering, summa cum laude, the dean announced, and I swear the cheering got louder. When I shook his hand, he leaned in and whispered, "Congratulations on everything, son. You should be proud." From my seat with the other graduates, I could see Aunt Caroline crying happy tears in the audience. Maya was holding up her phone, live streaming everything with running commentary that I'd probably regret later. Dr. Kim sat with my uncle and cousins, all of them beaming like I'd just won an Olympic medal. My parents were nowhere to be seen. After the ceremony, as families swarmed the Greek theater taking pictures, Janet Morrison approached with her camera crew. "Alex, could we get a quick interview about today's events?" I was about to decline. I felt emotionally wrung out and just wanted to celebrate quietly, when my phone started buzzing with notifications. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, even LinkedIn. The hashtag #DeadButThriving was trending nationally. What's happening? I asked Maya, who was frantically scrolling through her phone. Someone live-streamed your parents' protest, she said, eyes wide. It's everywhere. But Alex, look at this. She showed me her screen, thousands of people sharing their own stories of family rejection, using photos of their graduations, weddings, career achievements. You started something. That's when Jessica came running up again, but this time she was grinning. You guys need to see this. Now. She pulled up the Millfield Community Facebook page on her phone. The local news had posted about the graduation incident, and the comments were brutal, but not toward me. Absolutely disgusting behavior from the Nakamuras, wrote Mrs. Peterson, my old piano teacher. I've known Alex since he was 5 years old, and he's a wonderful young man. His parents should be ashamed. Tom Miller, Dad's former poker buddy, had commented, Jim's lost his damn mind. Kid graduates with honors and gets a job at Google, and this is how they react. Linda and Jim are the ones who need help. But the comment that made me stop breathing was from Millfield High School. We're proud to claim Alex Chin Nakamura as one of our graduates. His parents' behavior today does not reflect the values of our community. Congratulations, Alex, from all your former teachers and classmates. 63 likes and counting. Your whole hometown is turning on them, Jessica said softly. People are pissed. Really pissed. Janet was still waiting patiently with her microphone. Alex, this story has clearly struck a nerve nationwide. Any thoughts on the response? I looked around at the celebration happening around us, families hugging graduates, friends taking selfies, the joy of achievement filling the warm afternoon air. 6 months ago, I thought my world was ending when my parents cut me off. Now I realized it was just beginning. I think there are a lot of kids out there who need to know that their family's rejection isn't the end of their story, I said finally. You can be declared dead and still thrive. Sometimes the family you build is stronger than the one you're born into. Any message for other parents who might be struggling with a transgender child? I thought about Mom's face when she'd see me in my cap and gown, that flicker of recognition before she'd looked away. Love them while you can, I said. Because one day you'll wake up and realize you chose your fear over your child, and they'll have built a beautiful life without you. The interview went viral within hours. 2 weeks after graduation, I was packing my Berkeley apartment for the move to Mountain View when the registered letter arrived. Official legal letterhead, thick envelope, my stomach dropping before I even opened it. Cease and desist from defamatory statements, read the header in bold letters. My parents were suing me. According to their lawyer, some guy named Patterson from Fresno, I had maliciously damaged their reputation through false and inflammatory statements to media outlets. They demanded I retract all interviews, issue a public apology, and pay $50,000 in damages for emotional distress and loss of standing in the community. Maya found me sitting on my kitchen floor an hour later, still holding the papers. Holy shit, she breathed, reading over my shoulder. They're actually trying to sue you for telling the truth about what they did. Look at this part, I said, pointing to paragraph 3. They're claiming I made up the whole intervention story. That Pastor Williams was never involved. That they never told the family I was dead. But you have proof. Jessica has the screenshots of your mom's messages. Their lawyer says those were private expressions of grief that have been taken out of context. I laughed bitterly. Apparently telling your entire family that your transgender son died is just how some people process emotions. My phone rang, Dr. Kim's number. Word was already spreading. Alex, I just heard from the university legal office, she said without preamble. Don't panic, but you need representation. I have a contact at the ACLU who specializes in LGBTQ+ cases. Can you be at their San Francisco office at 2 p.m. tomorrow? The next morning brought worse news. Maya burst into my apartment at 7 a.m., laptop in hand. Alex, wake up. Now. You need to see this. She pulled up a YouTube video posted at midnight, professionally shot, with fancy graphics and dramatic music. The title read, The Real Story, A Transgender Activist's Lies Exposed. My parents sat in what looked like a hotel conference room, both dressed in their Sunday best. Mom had clearly been crying, her makeup carefully applied to emphasize her distress. Dad wore his American flag pin and held his worn Bible. Our daughter has been struggling with mental illness for years, Mom said directly to the camera. We've tried everything, therapy, medication, prayer. When she moved away for college, she fell in with radical activists who convinced her to reject her family and embrace this dangerous lifestyle. The video cut to photos of me as a child. My parents had clearly kept copies despite supposedly removing them all from the house. Me in Easter dresses, playing with dolls, looking miserable in every single shot if you knew what to look for. Linda was always such a sweet, feminine girl, Dad said. Straight A's, never any trouble. Then these college professors filled her head with gender ideology, and suddenly she wanted to destroy everything we'd built together. Pastor Williams appeared next, sitting in what was obviously the Millfield Community Church sanctuary. I've counseled many families through similar situations, he said, apparently unbothered by his pending criminal trial. The transgender movement targets vulnerable young people and turns them against their loving parents. This family needs our prayers, not persecution. The worst part was how reasonable they sounded. How loving and concerned. If I didn't know better, I might have believed them myself. The video had 12,000 views already, with comments ranging from supportive, praying for your family during this difficult time, to vicious, that sick freak daughter of yours needs to be institutionalized. Maya was reading the description aloud. All proceeds from this video will go toward legal fees to fight our daughter's defamation campaign and fund resources for other families dealing with transgender ideology. They'd monetized my story. Jesus Christ, I whispered. They're crowdfunding a lawsuit against me. By noon, the video had hit 50,000 views and raised over $8,000. My parents hadn't just declared me dead, they'd turned my resurrection into their personal cash cow. The ACLU lawyer, Patricia Santos, watched their YouTube video with the kind of professional detachment that comes from seeing too much human cruelty. Her San Francisco office overlooked the bay, and I kept staring out at the water while she took notes on legal pad after legal pad. This is actually good for us, she said finally, which wasn't what I'd expected to hear. They just created a discoverable record of their strategy. Look, she paused the video at the 3:47 mark, where Mom was dabbing her eyes with a tissue. See how she refers to you as Linda throughout, but slips and says Alex exactly once, right here when she's talking about the Google job. I squinted at the screen. She was right, Mom's mask had dropped for just a second when mentioning my salary, a flicker of what might have been pride before she caught herself. They know exactly who you are, Patricia continued. This whole confused daughter narrative is performance art. And the fact that they're monetizing it. She gestured at the donation counter, now approaching $15,000. That's going to backfire spectacularly. Maya leaned forward from the client chair beside me. How is them making money off Alex's trauma good news? Because it establishes financial motive for their defamation claims. They're not grieving parents seeking truth, they're entrepreneurs building a brand around rejecting their transgender son. Patricia pulled up something on her computer screen. Alex, I need you to document every interaction you've had with your parents since you came out. Texts, emails, phone calls, everything. Especially anything showing they knew you were thriving. That evening, I sat in my half-packed apartment going through 8 months of digital archaeology. Screenshots Jessica had sent me from the family group chat. The funeral letter, still in my desk drawer. Bank records showing exactly when they'd cut off my credit cards, October 15th, 11:47 p.m., 3 hours after I'd called to tell them about making Dean's List. But buried in my email drafts folder, I found something I'd forgotten about. A message I'd written to Mom in December but never sent, right after I'd gotten my Google offer. Mom, I know you think I'm making a mistake, but I'm happy. Really happy, for the first time in years. I got a job at Google, $127,000 starting salary. I'm graduating summa cum laude in May. I know you raised me to believe success comes from living according to your values, but what if my success comes from living according to mine? What if this is actually God's plan for me, and you're fighting against it? I miss you every day. Love, Alex. I typed it at 2 a.m. after a particularly brutal wave of homesickness, then saved it as a draft because I knew she'd just delete it unread. But the timestamp was there, December 18th, 2 weeks before their Christmas card arrived addressed to current resident at my apartment, their final gesture of erasure. My phone rang while I was screenshotting the draft. Unknown number, but I recognized the area code now, another Millfield call. Alex? This is Principal Martinez from Millfield High. My old principal, the one who congratulated me publicly on Facebook. Her voice was tense, official. Hi, Mrs. Martinez. Is everything okay? I'm calling because your parents contacted our district office today. They're demanding we retract our congratulations post and remove your name from our notable alumni list. She paused, and I heard papers shuffling. They're claiming you've brought negative attention to the school and that supporting you violates the community's religious values. The alumni list. I'd forgotten they'd added me after the Google announcement, right alongside kids who'd gone on to Stanford and gotten NFL scholarships. Seeing Alex Chin Nakamura, class of 2019, software engineer at Google Incorporated, had been one of the few bright spots during the media chaos. What did you tell them? I asked. I told them that we're proud of all our graduates who go on to achieve great things, regardless of their personal circumstances. But Alex. Her voice softened. The school board is meeting tomorrow night. Your parents are planning to attend with what they're calling concerned community members. They want a formal vote to have you removed from all school materials. I closed my eyes. Even my high school achievements weren't safe from their scorched earth campaign. Mrs. Martinez, I don't want to cause problems for the school. Stop right there, she said firmly. You haven't caused any problems. You've made us proud. But I wanted you to know what's coming, because I have a feeling this isn't going to stay quiet. She was right. By morning, the Millfield School Board controversy was trending on local Twitter, and someone had leaked that Pastor Williams planned to speak at the meeting despite his ongoing legal troubles. The battle for my dead reputation was just getting started. The day before the school board meeting, I was in my new Mountain View apartment trying to focus on Google orientation materials when Maya FaceTimed me with panic written across her face. Alex, you need to get on Twitter right now. Search your name with Millfield. My laptop was still buried in moving boxes, so I pulled it up on my phone. The first result made my blood run cold, a video posted by something called Patriots for Family Values, with the caption, Transgender Activist Threatens Small Town School District. The footage was shaky, clearly shot with someone's phone through a car window. It showed me at 17, walking across the stage at my high school graduation 3 years ago. Someone had edited it with ominous music and text overlays, Linda Nakamura, from honor student to radical activist, and how one student's mental illness divided a community. There's more, Maya said grimly. Keep scrolling. The next tweet was from an account called at Millfield Moms. Alex Chin Nakamura is trying to force our children's school to celebrate transgender ideology. Protect our kids from this dangerous agenda. Hashtag save our schools, hashtag parental rights. It had been retweeted 847 times in 6 hours. Maya, I haven't done anything to force anyone to do anything. I literally found out about this yesterday. I know that. You know that. But look at the replies. The comments were a mix of support and vitriol that made my stomach churn. Parents I didn't recognize arguing about transgender rights in schools, people sharing articles about social contagion, someone posting my old yearbook photo with the caption, "This is what mental illness looks like." But buried in the mess was a thread from a teacher Sarah M that stopped me cold. I taught Alex for 3 years. Brilliant kid, but clearly struggling with something he couldn't name. When I saw him at graduation in 2019, everything finally made sense. The depression lifted, the anxiety gone. He looked like himself for the first time. That's not mental illness, that's healing. Mrs. Morrison. My AP English teacher, defending me to strangers on the internet. The replies to her thread were brutal. You're part of the problem, groomer, and teachers like you should be fired for pushing this sick agenda on kids. My phone rang, Patricia Santos from the ACLU. Alex, I've been monitoring the situation in Millfield. This has escalated beyond a simple school board dispute. There are now 3 separate GoFundMe campaigns, one supporting your parents' legal fund, one calling for your removal from all school materials, and one demanding Mrs. Martinez's resignation for promoting transgender ideology. I sat down heavily on my couch, surrounded by unpacked boxes and the life I was trying to build. How much money are we talking about? Your parents' legal fund is at $23,000. The campaign against you personally has raised $8,400. But Alex, here's what's interesting, there's a 4th campaign I don't think you know about yet. She texted me a link. Millfield student support Alex Chin Nakamura had raised $31,000 in 2 days, organized by someone named Emma Rodriguez. Emma Rodriguez. I remembered her, a sophomore when I was a senior, shy kid who sat alone at lunch. The fundraiser description read, Alex Chin Nakamura was a role model at our school. He tutored underclassmen, volunteered at food drives, and graduated as salutatorian despite clearly dealing with personal struggles. Now he's thriving at Google while his own family tries to erase his achievements. Current MHS students stand with Alex. This money will go toward LGBTQ+ support resources at our school and a scholarship fund in Alex's honor. Emma Rodriguez started this. I asked Patricia. Actually, it gets better. Look who's sharing it. I clicked through to the social media shares. Mrs. Morrison, 3 other teachers I remembered, the current student body president, and dozens of names I recognized from my graduating class. People I hadn't talked to in years were publicly supporting me against my own parents. But the share that made me start crying was from at Coach Jenkins_MHS. Alex Nakamura was the hardest working kid I ever coached, even though softball clearly wasn't his passion. He never quit, never complained, always supported his teammates. That's character. I'm proud to have coached him, and I'm proud of who he's become. Hashtag stand with Alex. Coach Jenkins, who made my life miserable for 4 years insisting I had potential, while I desperately tried to fail my way off the team. Even she understood who I really was. Patricia, I said, wiping my eyes, what happens at the board meeting tomorrow? Well, technically it's just a vote on whether to remove your name from their alumni materials. But realistically, it's become a referendum on transgender acceptance in small-town America. There are going to be news crews, protesters, the whole circus. I looked out my apartment window at the Google campus across the street, where I was supposed to start my dream job in 2 weeks. 6 months ago, I'd been eating ramen and wondering if I could afford both groceries and hormones. Now I was accidentally the center of a national culture war. I think, I said slowly, I need to go to that meeting. The decision to attend the Millfield School Board meeting felt like volunteering to walk into a lion's den, but by Wednesday morning, I knew I had to go. Maya insisted on driving down with me, and to my surprise, Dr. Kim asked if she could come too. You shouldn't face this alone, she said when I tried to protest. Besides, I've been dealing with hostile school boards for 15 years. I know how to handle small-town politics. We left Mountain View at 3 p.m. for the 6 p.m. meeting, giving us time to grab dinner and scout the situation. But as we pulled into Millfield's town center, it became clear that situation was an understatement. The parking lot of Millfield High was packed beyond capacity. News vans from 3 different stations lined the street, reporters doing live shots with the school marquee in the background. Someone had organized 2 separate protest areas, one side holding signs reading, Protect Our Children, and Biology is Real, the other with rainbow flags and posters saying, Love wins, and Alex is our alumnus. Holy shit, Maya breathed, staring at the crowd. Alex, there are like 200 people here. A familiar figure caught my eye near the school entrance, Emma Rodriguez, now a senior, wearing a Millfield GSA president t-shirt and directing a group of current students setting up a banner. When she spotted me getting out of Maya's car, her face lit up. Alex. She jogged over, breathless with excitement. I can't believe you actually came. This is incredible. I mean, not incredible that your parents are being awful, but incredible that you're here. Emma, I can't believe what you organized. The fundraiser, all of this. I gestured at the students behind her, most of whom I didn't recognize but who were wearing homemade shirts with my name on them. Are you kidding? You were like a legend at school. Everyone knew you were struggling with something, but you still helped anyone who asked. Tommy Martinez, you remember him, sophomore when you were a senior? He says you're the only reason he passed calculus. She paused, suddenly looking uncertain. Is it weird that we're doing this? I mean, we didn't ask permission. Before I could answer, a commotion erupted near the school entrance. My parents had arrived, flanked by Pastor Williams and about 15 people I recognized from their church. Dad was carrying a briefcase and what looked like poster boards, while Mom walked with the rigid posture she adopted when she felt persecuted. They spotted me immediately. The look on Dad's face when he saw me standing there, very much alive and surrounded by supporters, was something I'd remember forever. Shock, followed by anger, followed by what might have been fear. He said something to Pastor Williams, who immediately started walking in our direction. Alex, Dr. Kim said quietly, we should get inside. Don't let them control the narrative before the meeting even starts. But Pastor Williams was already close enough to be heard by the news cameras. Linda Nakamura, he called out, using my dead name deliberately. Your parents are here because they love you. It's not too late to come home to your family. The current students around Emma bristled. His name is Alex, one of them, a kid who couldn't have been more than 16, said loudly. And maybe if you hadn't stolen money from your church, people would care what you think about families. Pastor Williams's face went red. I have been cleared of all charges. You literally have a court date next month, Emma said, pulling out her phone. October 15th, 9 a.m., Fresno County Superior Court. I googled it. A reporter shoved a microphone toward the brewing confrontation, but Maya grabbed my arm. Come on. Let's get inside before this turns into a circus. As we walked toward the school entrance, I heard Mom's voice behind us. She's been completely brainwashed. That's not our daughter anymore. I turned around, facing her directly for the first time in 10 months. You're right, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Your daughter was miserable, depressed, and slowly dying inside. I'm your son, and I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. The cameras caught every word. Inside the school, the familiar hallways felt surreal. My senior portrait still hung in the main corridor, back when I was Linda Nakamura with long hair and a smile that never reached my eyes. Emma noticed me staring at it. We voted to leave it up, she said. The current GSA, I mean. We figured you earned your place there, whatever name you were using at the time. The auditorium was already packed, with people still streaming in. I spotted Mrs. Martinez near the stage, looking stressed but determined. When she saw me, she made her way over immediately. Alec, rather than getting the help she needs, she's been enabled by radical activists who convinced her to reject her family and embrace a dangerous lifestyle. He held up one of the poster boards Emma and I had spotted earlier. It was a blown-up screenshot of my Twitter account, showing a photo from my Google orientation week where I was smiling in front of their logo wall. This individual is using our school's endorsement to promote transgender ideology to impressionable children. Look at these social media posts. He flipped to another board showing tweets I'd shared about Transgender Visibility Day. She's actively recruiting vulnerable students to reject their biological reality. A murmur ran through the crowd. Behind me, I heard one of Emma's GSA kids whisper, he keeps calling him she. What an asshole. Dad continued, we're not asking the board to take a political stance. We're simply requesting that they not use taxpayer resources to promote our daughter's mental health crisis as something to be celebrated. He sat down to scattered applause, mostly from the church contingent near the front. Mrs. Martinez approached the podium next, carrying a single sheet of paper. Board members, Alex Chin Nakamura graduated as salutatorian of his class in 2019 with a 4.7 GPA. He tutored struggling students, organized 3 food drives, and maintained perfect attendance despite clearly dealing with personal challenges. She looked directly at me in the audience. After graduation, he earned a computer engineering degree from UC Berkeley with highest honors and secured employment at Google with a starting salary higher than what most of our teachers will ever make. These are objective achievements that reflect well on our educational system. More murmurs, but different ones. I caught Mrs. Peterson from my old Sunday school class nodding approvingly 3 rows ahead. The young man I see today is confident, successful, and authentically himself in a way he never was as a student here. If we remove his name from our alumni list, we're not protecting our students, we're teaching them that academic excellence doesn't matter if you don't conform to certain social expectations. The applause for her was notably louder and longer. Pastor Williams spoke next, predictably quoting scripture and warning about cultural Marxism infiltrating our schools. But when he mentioned the moral authority of stable families, someone in the back shouted, how's your embezzlement trial going, and he visibly flustered. Then Emma Rodriguez walked to the podium, and the entire energy in the room shifted. Hi, I'm Emma Rodriguez, senior class president and founder of Millfield High's Gender Sexuality Alliance, she began, and I watched my parents exchange horrified glances. I never actually knew Alex personally when he was a student here, but his reputation was legendary. Everyone knew if you were struggling in math or science, you could ask Alex Nakamura for help and he'd stay after school tutoring you for free. She pulled out her phone. After his story went viral, I created a Google form asking current students to share their memories of Alex. I got 247 responses in 2 days. Would you like to hear some of them? The room went completely silent. Emma cleared her throat and began reading from her phone. Alex helped me pass chemistry when I was failing junior year. He made flashcards and met me in the library every day for 3 weeks. I never would have graduated without him. She looked up. That's from Maria Santos, class of 2020. My chest tightened. I barely remembered Maria, but apparently she remembered me. Here's another one. Alex was the only person who stood up for me when Brad Morrison and his friends were calling me slurs in the hallway. He got detention for telling them to back off, but he never complained about it. That was sophomore year, and I still think about it. Emma's voice grew stronger. That's from David Kim, current junior. I watched Dad's face grow increasingly rigid as Emma continued. This wasn't the narrative he prepared for. One more, I was struggling with my own gender identity during my freshman year, before we had GSA or any support groups. I was scared and confused and honestly considering dropping out. Then I saw Alex Nakamura at graduation in 2019, really saw him, and for the first time I understood that it was possible to figure yourself out and still be successful. I'm now a sophomore at UC Davis studying computer science, following the path Alex showed was possible. Emma looked directly at my parents. That's from Jordan Martinez, Mrs. Martinez's own nephew. The principal's face showed surprise. She clearly hadn't known about her nephew's journey. Emma put her phone away. 247 students shared similar stories. Alex Chin Nakamura represents the best of what Millfield High can produce, someone who succeeds academically while lifting up others along the way. If we remove his name from our alumni list, we're telling current students that their achievements don't matter if their families don't approve of who they are. The applause was thunderous. I saw Mrs. Morrison wiping her eyes, and even some parents from the church section looked uncertain. Board member Patricia Wong raised her hand. Mrs. Rodriguez, has the school received any complaints from current students or families about Mr. Chin Nakamura's inclusion on the alumni list? None whatsoever. The only complaints came after his parents started their media campaign 3 weeks ago. Wong nodded, making notes. And the GSA fundraiser in his name, can you tell us about that? We've raised $34,000 from current students, recent graduates, and community members. The money will fund mental health resources, college scholarships, and anti-bullying programs. The response has been overwhelming. Pastor Williams stood up from the audience, clearly agitated. These children are being manipulated by radical gender ideology. Their parents have rights. Board President Stevens gabbled for order. Sir, public comment is closed. Please sit down. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Pastor Williams's voice rose. They're using our own children against us. First the Nakamura girl corrupts herself, now she's recruiting others. His name is Alex, Emma said firmly into the microphone, and he's not recruiting anyone. He's just existing successfully, which apparently threatens some people. The crowd erupted, half cheering, half booing. Security officers moved closer to Pastor Williams as he continued ranting about parental rights and protecting children from predators. That's when my mother stood up. Enough, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos with surprising authority. The room gradually quieted as she walked to the front, ignoring the microphone protocol. For a moment, she just stood there, looking at me across the crowded auditorium. Her carefully applied makeup had smudged slightly, and her hands were shaking. My child, she said slowly, has a starting salary of $127,000 at age 22. Lives independently in Silicon Valley. Graduated summa cum laude from one of the best universities in the country. Her voice cracked. And apparently inspired dozens of struggling students along the way. Dad was staring at her in horror. Linda, what are you doing? She ignored him, addressing the board directly. I don't understand my son's choices. I may never understand them. But standing here listening to these students. She gestured toward Emma. Maybe the question isn't whether Alex belongs on your alumni wall. Maybe it's whether I deserve to be called his mother. The auditorium went dead silent. The school board voted 6-1 to keep my name on the alumni wall. The single dissenting vote came from Pastor Williams's brother-in-law, who mumbled something about moral standards before the meeting adjourned at 9:47 p.m. But that wasn't the moment I realized my parents would rather see me dead than happy. That moment came 3 hours later, at 12:23 a.m., when Mom called me from the Motel 6 parking lot where they were staying overnight. I meant what I said in there, she whispered into the phone, her voice raw from crying. About not deserving to be called your mother. I was sitting in Maya's car outside a 24-hour diner, still processing everything that had happened. Mom. No, let me finish. Your father, he's not speaking to me right now. Says I humiliated him in front of the whole town. Pastor Williams called me a compromised woman who's been infected by the transgender agenda. She laughed bitterly. 27 years of marriage, and he's more upset about me acknowledging your success than he ever was about losing you. Through the phone, I could hear Dad's voice in the background. Linda, hang up that phone right now. I have to go, Mom whispered. But Alex. I saw those students tonight. I saw how they talked about you. That's not mental illness, baby. That's love. Real love. She hung up before I could respond. The next morning brought a text from Jessica, your mom moved out. She's staying with Grandma Betty in Fresno. Your dad changed the locks and told everyone at church she had a mental breakdown. He's filing for divorce. I stared at the message, feeling something between grief and relief. After 28 years of marriage, my parents were getting divorced because Mom had publicly acknowledged my achievements. Dad literally chose his hatred of me over his wife. The final piece of the puzzle came 2 weeks later, when Pastor Williams was sentenced to 4 years in prison for embezzlement. At his sentencing hearing, he gave a rambling speech about moral decay in modern society, and specifically mentioned my family as an example of Satan's influence destroying Christian homes. My father attended that hearing. Sat in the front row, nodding along as a convicted criminal used my existence to explain society's problems. That's when it clicked. Dad would rather align himself with thieves and liars than accept his successful, happy, thriving son. He would rather lose his wife, his community standing, and his family than admit he was wrong about me. In his mind, I was supposed to disappear quietly, stay dead, like they'd announced to everyone. My visibility, my success, my happiness was worse than any actual tragedy could have been. A dead daughter was sympathetic. A living, successful son was a threat to everything he believed about the world. The Google stock options I received last month are now worth more than Dad's annual salary. Mom started therapy and sends me pictures of her new apartment in Fresno, where she volunteers with a PFLAG chapter. The Emma Rodriguez Scholarship Fund, named after the girl who defended me, has raised $89,000 and counting. And sometimes, late at night, I think about Dad sitting alone in that house where all my photos used to hang, having chosen his hatred over everyone who ever loved him. He got his wish. His daughter is dead. His son is thriving without him. The difference between those two facts is everything.